council, and that council is tasked with coming up with a statewide plan to address and hopefully one day end hunger and poverty in New Mexico. And it's something that is important to obviously everyone in this room, but also so many people that aren't here today. And I want to give you a little bit of background as to how this specific piece of legislation came to be. And I'd actually have to go back another legislative session, although we passed the House Memorial this past session, to the prior session. And you may remember a bill that was introduced and passed by Senator Michael Padilla. I believe he spoke here last year. That bill created the Hunger Bill of Rights. That is correct, and addressed a lot of blood shaming issues that children in New Mexico specifically deal with. And one of the things that has been most surprising to me since I've been in the legislature is how little this issue of hunger is addressed or even talked about. And so it really wasn't until that piece of legislation got brought forth that we had a really in-depth discussion. And it was something that really struck home for me because as a child, I grew up in poverty. I was one of those children that never had to fortunately deal with hunger issues, but I had free and reduced lunch at different times of my life, and that allowed me to have a warm meal every day when I went to school for both breakfast and lunch. And I was one of those kids that was ashamed on a couple of different occasions. And so it was so phenomenal for the senator to introduce this legislation, and I stood in strong support and was one of the biggest cheerleaders from the sidelines to make sure that that got passed. And so it was truly remarkable. It was the first of its kind in the entire country, and I know other states have followed suit. So on the heels of that, it really got me thinking, because a lot of those discussions really centered around a lot of different issues that, again, weren't always talked about. The statistics were just staggering, and I'll read some of those for you, that 25% of children in New Mexico are at risk for hunger. Also that New Mexico ranks second among the states for childhood hunger. And also, the statistics also show that the overall hunger rate in New Mexico is 16%, ranking New Mexico 7th among the states with worse rates of food insecurity. That's just astonishing to me. And hearing those statistics, I thought, what could I do? How can I address some of these issues that so many people are dealing with here in our state? And just about that time, Ms. Sinfield, Brenda, she came and talked to me about this proposal about creating this hunger council, and it was like the forces kind of meeting together. And so we met, and together with other leaders from the Interfaith Hunger Coalition, the amazing organization that Carlos just talked about, we came up with this plan and created this council where we could bring a lot of the key stakeholders together to try to come up with a plan. Because a lot of people talk about it here and there, but what are the solutions? What can we specifically do to address these problems? And there are so many amazing organizations that I know are represented here today, so thank you all for everything that you do. But what could we do to bring all of these groups together? Private, public, nonprofit, for-profit, federal, state. I mean, there's so many organizations that are trying to do the same thing, but what could we do to bring them all together? And so we have this idea of this council that would do that. So we, after some time, put it down on paper, and although we sort of did the heavy lifting from the get-go, I felt like this isn't something that I should do on my own. We need more input from other people, and I wanted to make sure that this was not just something that I was doing, but something that others from across the state could work on as well. And I also felt that it was important that we had bipartisan support, so I reached out to Joanne Ferrari, who is one of our other main sponsors. She is a state representative from Las Cruces. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here today. I know she really wanted to. Another main sponsor that we brought in was Deborah Armstrong. She too is from the Albuquerque area. And last, but certainly not least, we have Rebecca Dow. She's a representative from Truth or Consequences. And each of us brings something different to the table, not just with respect to our political affiliations, but a lot of our background and experience. And so I felt like we were a good group of people that represented some of the diversity that we have in our state. And Together with Carlos and Brenda and so many other people, we've come up with a group of individuals that we're slowly trying to bring these stakeholders together and come up with, like I said, this statewide plan. There's still a lot more work that needs to be done to get this off and running. But one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that we did was that we didn't want to recreate the wheel, because again, as I mentioned, so many of you all are doing a lot of the work in your respective communities, and what could we learn from that? What could we learn from the existing organizations and programs that are already in place? And so it's our goal at some point in the future to bring these goals and ideas together and have the statewide plan and see what we can do. As Brenda indicated, I'm not seeking re-election, but although I won't be up in Santa Fe as a state representative after December, there are things that I know I can continue to do, and the other representatives that will continue to be there, and how we can continue to change and enact laws potentially and give funding for certain initiatives that will truly make a difference and hopefully at some point in our future end hunger and poverty in the state of New Mexico. Thank you.